Well, back now to our top story. We want to look now at the key role that WikiLeaks is playing in Edward Snowden's bid for asylum. The anti-secrecy organisation has been helping Snowden while he's been on the run from the US. WikiLeaks is also thought to have placed a high-level member of its legal team, Sarah Harrison, to travel with Snowden. It's also paid for Snowden's flights and other expenses. Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks, met with Ecuador's foreign minister to support Snowden's asylum request. Assange himself has been living in Ecuador's London embassy for the past year as he tries to avoid Swedish and British authorities. The organisation has also arranged a voluntary legal team to advise Snowden, as well as securing a special refugee document that allows him to travel after the United States revoked his passport. Now, Kristinn Hrafnsson is a spokesman for WikiLeaks, and he joins us now live from CNN New York. Kristinn, thanks very much for joining us on the show. Just first of all, how closely, on a daily basis, if you like, are you or is WikiLeaks in contact with Edward Snowden?
Well, a member of our team is with Mr. Snowden and travelled with him from Hong Kong to Moscow. I have not been in contact with him personally, but we have been in contact with him through our colleague.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin has confirmed that he is actually still in a transit area in a Moscow airport. Why has he not yet attempted to get to Ecuador?
Well, I cannot go into details about his whereabouts exactly and his travel plans, but I can just say that he is in a safe place and is resting after stressful weeks. And I would suspect that before too long we would see a movement there and onward travel.
Are you suggesting that he may actually not be in the transit area, that he may have already moved?
I am not suggesting that, no.
So he is still where the Russian president said, in the transit area?
Well, I would not want to say that the Russian president is not telling the truth.
Is Ecuador still Edward Snowden's final destination, do you know?
Of course, Mr. Snowden decides his own destiny, but as far as I know, that is the idea. That is his final destination and his will to go there, yes.
Okay, and you will, WikiLeaks will help facilitate his travel to Ecuador, I take it?
Well, we have assisted Mr. Snowden by giving access to our legal team, who have given advices to his legal team. Secondly, of course, we have acted as a go-between between his legal team and Mr. Snowden and various officials and government pertaining to his request for political asylum.
And how closely has WikiLeaks actually been working with the government so far involved? Hong Kong, Beijing, and now Russia and, of course, Ecuador?
We have not been working in a relationship with, for example, Russia, as Mr. Putin has said, and the foreign minister of Russia. We've carried messages to various officials and governments. It is now public that our requests for asylum, formally and informally, were passed on to the Icelandic government, and I did that personally myself, and to the Ecuadorian authorities. I cannot at this point name other countries that were involved or were approached.
Okay, I mean, would you appreciate the irony of the fact that Ecuador is, at this stage at least, apparently his final decision when WikiLeaks, which is known for upholding sort of freedom of information, freedom of restricted information, and involved with a country where freedom of information is not a priority. In fact, it's anything but a priority in Ecuador. There is an irony here, isn't there?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in the press issues in Ecuador, but I've traveled to a lot of Latin American countries, and what I've seen there, because I'm a journalist, I have been asking questions pertaining to that. It is not all what it seems on the surface. You talk about irony, and you are hinting at. No, sorry. You are hinting at some kind of a hypocrisy here. I think it's quite strange that suddenly the media, the international media, is so concerned about the press freedom in Ecuador, or lack thereof, a country that people would have had a hard time finding on a map. It's a small country. I'm much more concerned about the freedom of the press and or lack thereof in the U.S. and in many Western countries. That is my concern.
But it is a principle, surely, that freedom of the press is freedom of the press in any part of the world. And the Committee to Protect Journalists has quite clearly said that Ecuador is in the worst 10 in the world for protecting and offering freedom of information. You don't find that quite a hypocrisy?
I have not investigated in depth the situation with the press in Ecuador, and I suggest that that journalists actually should just go there and do an in-depth research on that. Various committees and associations can be wrong about assessing a situation.
I'd like to ask you about John Kerry's comments made to CNN in the past 24 hours or so, that, quote, people may die as a consequence of what this man, Edward Snowden, did, that there is a possibility that the US would be attacked by terrorists who now know how to protect themselves. What is your response to that? Have you seen and are you aware of any information that may have compromised individual US lives or indeed the country's sovereignty or exposure to a terrorist attacks through the actions of Edward Snowden?
These allegations by Kerry are absurd, and to imply that somehow when a whistleblower, a courageous man with a conscience, steps forth and reports and produces evidence of mass surveillance and spying on U.S. citizens and actually people around the world whose information are passed through servers in the U.S., are endangering the security in the U.S. and endangering lives. That is absurd. We heard the same thing 3 years ago in 2010 about WikiLeaks revelations. We were accused of maybe having already blood on our hands, quote unquote. Now 3 years have passed and not a single person has been reported as harmed as a result of the revelations by WikiLeaks. And may I suggest that the same thing applies now. This is propaganda, basically.
Just finally, Mr. Hrafnsson, do you know whether Edward Snowden is speaking to the Russian authorities, a secret service, if you like, or the equivalent of, about what he has uncovered on his own, on the leaking story? I mean, is he helping the Russians provide information?
No, of course he's not doing that. And this is, of course, another one of the Pentagon talking points. Actually, Putin spoke very directly out on that, about possible cooperation or directly assisting Snowden. He spoke very harshly about that and denied that allegation. This is an attempt to smear Snowden and take the focus away from the real issue here, which is, of course, the explosive revelations that we have seen from Snowden, and which should be the main focus of all reporting on the issue.
Kristinn Hrafnsson with WikiLeaks, thanks.